Who am I is always a very interesting question, because the name that you are given when you are born is not necessarily the name of who you are, i.e. your spiritual self. And a lot of people change their name during their lifetime because it doesn't resonate with them and they go to something that works a bit better. So who you are really becomes a question of more who you are from a spiritual sense. And I went through a lot of my life questioning who I was, and got to a point where I realized I didn't have to have a name per se. It was more what I did spiritually that was important. And I was connected to Source, and Source explained to me that in the galaxies and in the universe there are a number of spiritual beings that are referred to by him, and the best way he could describe it was as keepers of light. Now, keepers of light are like roving librarians with microphones and video cameras. They go around and they record all the vibrational energies of a civilization and existence, and the way they do that is by incorporating into that existence. So they would incarnate into a human form and experience all the things that go on in a human form, and thereby recording it all in their DNA, which is a cosmic DNA. And they would spend hundreds, thousands of lives on a particular planet, recording everything. In particular, like on Earth, I've had over 4,000 lives here. Can I remember them all? No, I can't. But I get flashes every now and then when it becomes relevant. And then that's just on this planet, and there's been other lives on other planets as well. So you get this like a massive library, and the library exists in not just visual images, not just sound recordings, but also in emotions. And every form of possible experience is recorded. And it was explained to me that that's who I was, and that was my function here. And when I got that explanation, it made my whole life make sense about why I hadn't fitted in with the mainstream population, and why I had things in my head that were totally in conflict with what the so-called experts were saying, particularly like with things like Egypt. Every time I read a book on Egyptology, I'd go, that's wrong, that the timings are wrong. And so then it came down to, well, understanding that who you are is more important than what your name is. And, you know, if we talk about God, well, God is a name that people on this planet have given that consciousness. God itself has no name and has no need for a name. So whenever people argue about whether it's God, or whether it's Krishna, or whether it's Allah, or whether it's Jehovah, or whatever, God's laughing, because he said, I'm none of those, and I'm all of them. You can call me whatever you want, it doesn't change what I am. You know, if I take a book and I hold it up and I say, this is a book, and everyone goes, yeah, yeah, and then I pull it up and I say, no, this is a cat. Whatever you call it doesn't change what it is. Okay, we're the only beings that seem to be so preoccupied with, you know, what our name is. And that's to do with our ego. We have an ego for a purpose, and that's part of the process of why we're here. The process of being here is to experience, end of story, just to experience, is our higher consciousness. And if we understand there is only oneness, there is only the collective consciousness, there is only the source, there is only the singularity, the void, whatever you want to call it, it is a point, an infinite point of nothingness, an infinite point of consciousness. So it's all things and no things at the same time. And for it to truly know what it was, it needs a mirror. You know, you don't know what you look like until you look in a mirror. And once you've looked in a mirror, you go, oh, that's what I look like. Okay? Until that time, you have no understanding of what you look like. You don't know what you sound like until you record yourself and play yourself back. And anybody who's done that will tell you, oh, it doesn't sound anything like me. And everyone says, no, that's what you sound like. So our mirrors are not always complete. For instance, what we see in a mirror is a mirror image, not a photograph. And if you actually hold up a photograph of yourself while you look in the mirror, the two images are totally different. So what we see is often a reflection of everything that we're not, rather than everything that we are. So we need some sort of feedback system, some sort of mechanism by which we can know ourselves. And this is what Source decided to do. It said, I need a mechanism by which I can truly know myself. So it created the absence of itself. And in doing that, created a process of fragmentation. And we are just a very small fragment of that consciousness. Like if I take a drop of water out of the ocean, it's still part of the ocean unless it chooses to think it's not. Okay? But it's a fragment of the whole. And what it's doing is it's choosing to experience itself through these contrasts, through these absences of itself. So the purpose of our life is to experience stuff so that we can become aware of our consciousness. And we're doing that from a higher level down. We're coming down to say, I'm going to choose to experience things in the mirror because that will enrich my true knowing of myself because I'll have experienced it rather than just known it. What's the point to all of this life? And it's really simply answered. Why do you go to watch a movie? To be entertained. That's exactly what it is. Or you might go to a documentary to be informed. So the whole purpose of life is to find out more about yourself and to be entertained. You don't actually have to do anything. Okay? Things will happen along the way, the same way as in a movie things happen, but you don't have to do anything. The script's already written so that it will happen to you. So why are we here? We are here to experience the third dimension. The third dimension is slowed down energy. Everything comes from Source. Source is the highest vibration and all vibrations. But it started with the highest form. And then it starts to slow itself down. So as you come down through dimensional levels, and they're like, look, it's like a train track going from one place to another. There are train stops along the way which will have labels, but everywhere is continuous. So there's no fifth dimension and then a break and then fourth dimension and then third. It's like coming down through visible light. You know, if you look at a rainbow, you can't really say where red becomes orange, becomes yellow, becomes green and blue. It's a continuous shift and change. So this vibrational frequency coming down gets to a point where the more it slows down, it becomes light. And then from light, it slows down, eventually becomes sound. And from sound, it slows down and eventually becomes matter. So matter is slowed down sound in this spectrum. So the third dimension is the lowest form of vibration. Okay, and there are subsonic aspects of sound below which we can't hear and we can't see, and subsonic aspects of matter, but they're considered the third dimension. And the third dimension is the highest forms of density and the lowest forms of vibration in terms of this whole field. So it's a way of slowing down things. And if you think about it, if somebody's talking to you really fast and you can't understand them, you say, slow down, slow down. And as they slow down their words, you get a greater understanding. So the third dimension is Source's way of getting a greater understanding of who it is by slowing down everything to a point where you can actually understand more detail. Like in a film. If I run it through really fast, it all happens. But if I want a detail on a particular frame or something, I have to do it in slow motion so I can see the real detail. And I can slow it down and I can just pick one frame out and I can analyze that frame. That's all that Source is doing. Source is slowing things down into a third dimensional concept. Well, the greatest thing to do is acknowledge that your higher self has actually chosen to be a part of this, to experience this, to experience the fear, and then to get through the fear. You know, you can't confront a fear by pushing it under the carpet and hoping it'll go away. You know, your fears are like a pack of hungry wolves. Eventually they're going to hunt you down and rip you to shreds. But if you stand up and you start running at that pack of wolves, they bolt because they're so scared that you're running at them. It's like a lion. If you run away from a lion, it's going to instinctively chase you. But if you run towards a lion, it backs off because it feels threatened. And that's what your fears are like. They're there for you to experience this. So by all means, go through, be terrified, horrified. It couldn't possibly be true. Denial, fear, fear. And then get through it and start to see the exciting aspect of it. Don't be attached to all the materialist things that are going on. Let go of them. Sell your house. Sell your property. You've got a month to do it. If you can, do it. And don't try to get market value for it. Don't be greedy. Sell it for a bargain and you'll get a 1-week settlement. And then you can use that money to prepare if you want to prepare to be a part of the future. Because there are some people who will be a part of the future. A lot of people said, well, what's the point? If we're all going to die, what's the point? Well, the point is we're not all going to die. The point is some of us are going to survive with an awakened level of consciousness and be the beginnings of an extraordinary time on this planet. Well, I want to be part of that. That sounds amazing. The most important preparation for people to make is in their heart, which means they have to get out of their head, because your head will just propagate fears. So you have to get out of your head and get into your heart and allow your heart to be the ruler and say to the head, what do I need to do to prepare? It's not the head saying, what do I need to do, and the heart having to adjust. You go into your heart, a state of being, a state of love, and you say, right, I know what I'm here to do, I know what I'm meant to be, da-da-da-da-da. What do I need to do physically to prepare for that? And it will tell you to find somewhere safe, to plan ahead, you might find a support group, a survival group, etc., who are all like-minded. So the most important thing is to let go of all attachments, because all attachments are based in fear. Oh, I'm fearful I'm going to lose my car. I'm fearful I'm going to lose my job. I'm fearful I'm going to lose my partner. So we're attached emotionally to these things, and we have to just let it all go and just be in our heart, be in a state of love, and then follow our own guidance. And some people will be told that they need to prepare, but not to prepare out of fear of what's going to happen, but to prepare for what happens after these events. There are the higher dimensional aspects and beings who are going to be there to guide us through. That's if you are of human consciousness. See, the star racers who are here will just go back to their dimensional consciousness. That's why so many of the light workers think nothing's going to happen, it's just going to be a smooth transition. Well, it will be for them. They'll just leave their body. But the human consciousnesses won't. And that's why I say to people, just go in, just make a decision. Have you come here from a star system? Have you all your life been connected to some sort of star race, whatever it may be, and always felt that you came from the stars and you're here for a reason, and you've been doing the sort of work to help people? Or do you feel that that's something that you're aspiring to do, that you're wanting to leave the earth, that you feel like you've achieved everything you need to do here and you're ready to embark on a journey beyond that? Because you'll be one or the other. No one is better than the other. This is the great thing. In the eyes of Source, no one is better than anyone else. Everyone plays their part in a film. You're a filmmaker. You know the person who holds the sound is just as important as the person who runs the camera. It's just as important as the director. It's just as important as the extra in the background drinking a cup of coffee. We all have different responsibilities, but we are all integral into the success of that film. And if one of us doesn't play our part right, the film is incomplete or doesn't function properly. And that's how Source sees everything. No ego. This has been an important part of the process in the film. Where are we in the film? We're coming up to the final turning point, where everything starts to go absolutely haywire. The final turning point. This is the height point of the drama we're coming up to. And as a filmmaker, that's, you structure everything around that. You've got to write a really brilliant opening to a film. And your best writing is at the end, because you have to tie everything in together. But your most creative aspect is that turning point. And that's where the most drama is that turning point. And that's where we are now.